ladies and gentlemen, on this Friday, the 4th of November. My name is Sean Michael Small. This is Talking Point on your content capital, WESN. And, well, if you've been watching the show for the last week, you more or less know where my head is at with regards to the state of things and my fears for the state of things to come. And while I will want to continue with some of the discussion, or rather continue the general trajectory or the general concepts of where are we headed? Why are things looking so bad? What is it that we are not necessarily seeing out of our leadership, like practical solutions, for example? But a couple of things happened, some early in the week, some as late as just yesterday, that demand attention, and we will get to the situation with the local government elections more or less being pushed back a year. And the subjectivity of, is it even ethical? It probably is legal. The fact that it is legal and potentially unethical will then beg the question, how is it that our system of laws and governance allows for a sitting administration to just extend the terms of office of local government officials at a time when potentially they might be the least popular they have been since their initial election campaign, before they even won their first term. But before we get into that, those of you who are long-time watchers would know tourism, it's a bit of a pet peeve with regards to how the government handles tourism. Because tourism in this country really is just, you know, it's a lip service thing. It's something that is touted out about diversification. And it's not limited to this government. I could even tell you who the Minister of Tourism was before this government, which is to basically emphasize what little impact that ministry has had in my life. And my life, up until this point here on this program, is more or less been centered around tourism. Tourism paid for more or less everything that I have. And I don't even know who the Minister of Tourism was for the bulk of it. Why? Because it wasn't necessary. And I'm not going to lie, I constantly forget that we even have a Minister of Tourism right now, especially when we get these bait and switch situations like this. Because a new hotel is being lauded, it's being launched. Now we have near Tepeaco, let me just make sure, the Sheraton International Hotel, 153 high-quality rooms. This will add to the room stock of Trinidad and Tobago, Trinidad specifically. This will add more jobs. This will add more visitors, will it? I'm pretty sure that the script that Minister Mitchell is stating, you could more or less get almost the exact same talking points when he sat at a press conference, I don't know why, at the Bricks Hotel when it was announced that the new owners were going to renovate, rebrand, and reopen that hotel. Private venture, I don't know why the minister was there as though he was involved, but oh well. Now Sheraton here is opening up a new hotel in Piaco, 153 high-end rooms in the middle of the country, nowhere near beaches, sea line, scenery. It's near the airport. It's an airport hotel. I'm pretty sure in the history of the world, an airport hotel is not the thing that their tourism industry relies upon. In fact, the Bricks isn't that badly placed. It's near Savannah. You know, it's pretty close to several cultural areas of significance. The Botanical Gardens and the Emperor Valley Zoo obviously are nearby. You could have easy access to Port of Spain, and if for whatever reason you want to, you could go to the local shopping centers, restaurants, etc. It's a pretty centralized spot. Sheraton is near the airport. To me, it just screams as though it's a layover hotel. Maybe they're hoping to get business from foreign airlines who don't come here that frequently, but their pilots have to sleep somewhere. But there are multiple other hotels around that area, including not too far on the highway, just before the turnoff, I believe, a Holiday Inn. Yeah, that did so much for tourism when they opened that Holiday Inn near Piarco. This Sheraton is probably going to be even closer to the airport. It's going to do so much more, not so? I mean, tourism in this country was going so well that Hilton decided to pull out of the Tobago Hilton. If you don't know what the Tobago Hilton was, it's called Magdalena right now, the same hotel that the government is trying to sell. Because way back when, Tobago Hilton decided to close up its operations, and Hilton decided, hey, the maintenance and upkeep of this facility is too much. If the government's not going to foot that bill after construct anything, we're going to pull out. What was the plan for tourism then? We'll renovate Magdalena and reopen it because we need to add rooms to the room stock, high quality rooms, and that somehow will bring the mythical tourists in. And the mythical tourists never came in. And the mythical tourists never came in for the Holiday Inn, and the mythical tourists never came in. I mean, it's questionable how much actual legitimate non-business tourists came in for the Hyatt, because I'm pretty sure, yes, a nice hotel will attract customers, but we had a Hilton, and we had Radisson, and we have K-Park. We have rooms for business travelers. Do the amount of business travelers we have fill the already existing room stock? So let's forget about business travelers, because it's not as though we're attracting a lot of foreign investment with regards to our crime situation. Oh wait, that also impacts tourism. How much actual visitors? We don't need another hotel for Carnival. Those people who come in for Carnival would come in regardless of what the hotel is. Regardless of if Hilton Trinidad renovates its pool area. That's not bringing in tourists. That is Carnival bringing in tourists. How is this going to help? And then he says, oh, well, add hundreds of jobs in construction and a couple more hundred jobs in operations. No, it won't. We'll more or less have the same amount of taxi drivers, the same amount of food and beverage, nightlife, entertainment. Whatever is there will be there. It's an airport hotel. You don't see things built around the hotels next to JFK and next to LaGuardia. Yeah, you'll see some eateries and stuff, but we're not talking anything substantial here. And it's not as though we see a lot of traffic to these hotels to say, hey, these hotels making a mint. We already have problems attracting people to the island, adding rooms. That's what the airline says, more high-end rooms. 153 high-end rooms? No, it's not going to be that high-end. We already have rooms of that quality in Hilton, Hyatt. This is just more of the same to compete with assets that the government owns. That's ironic. You're celebrating your own competition. You want to know what we need with tourism in this country? Chief Secretary of the THA will lead a contingent to the World Travel Market in the United Kingdom from Friday, I believe today, to November the 13th. That's next week. It's like 10 days. Going out there to market his island, to market their product, to explain to people, this is the unique offerings that we have in Tobago. The ecotourism opportunities in Tobago, I believe, I can't remember if it was if it was Forbes or a significant international publication listed us as one of the top 10 ecotourism sites. I don't think it was limited to region. It could be internationally. Regardless, Even if it's in the region, we need to understand the region will include all of the Caribbean islands and maybe even parts of Central and South America. We have a lot to offer with our unique, well, we had a bird sanctuary, not entirely sure about that. We had bird watching in Tobago, both, I believe, on the Central Range as well, of course, Little Tobago. Not entirely sure what's going on with Little Tobago right now. World's biggest brain coral, nylon pool. The Pitch Lake is something of a natural wonder of the world. We technically don't own it right now. We have things that we could market to try to attract visitors to what we have. Not just will we build rooms and people will come. That's never worked, ever. And this is, I don't know, the 4th, 5th, or 6th time that the Minister of Tourism is trying to sell us. This is not even a good fable. The Chief Secretary of THA is leading a contingent, not just the Secretary of Tourism. Because he understands that at the end of the day, if he wants private sector jobs, because the THA cannot continue to be the biggest by a wide margin employer in Tobago. So he needs to improve his private sector job creation. So he's looking to try to help out the private sector. And yes, first in line are the airlines and the hotels. By the way, we own a regional carrier. Do any foreign tourists from Europe coming on Caribbean Airlines? Not enough of significance to count or matter. After that comes the entertainment. All of the vendors, all of the subsidiary industries, tour operators, all of the THA enterprises like with Argyle Falls and what have you, where they could collect a little bit of revenue as well as properly showcase the island. We have a lot to offer. Do we take advantage or make use of it? No. There are smaller islands up the Caribbean. No offense to them. They don't have the advantages we have, but they do have one thing we don't have. They know how to make use effectively. So I'm very frustrated with Mr. Mitchell and his, at this point, he's basically, just like with cruise ship arrivals that, again, amounted to zero economic activity of significance. Now we're in this situation where, okay, you know what, he gets a photo opportunity. I'm still here, folks. Look at me. I'm still here. I'm doing something. Diversification. It starts right here. No, it's not. The hotel itself is not even going to employ 100 people, to be honest. 150 rooms, you're not going to have that much employees. Yeah, you'll have a sizable housekeeping staff. Your front desk staff, at some point, you only need so much, and you only need so much management. Yeah, you'll have some maintenance, but 153 rooms, it's big, but it's not that big. How many restaurants might it have? It might have one. If it's anything like a Holiday Inn that I've stayed at by the airport in the States or in New Jersey, that is to say, not in a tourist area, it'll just have a perfunctory, obligatory restaurant, nothing fancy. Not a lot of staff, not that much size of a kitchen. We're not talking an operation like Hyatt or Hilton here. What does it add to the country? I have no idea. We'll get in a hotel, we get a few more jobs, yeah. That's not what the country needs. What the country needs with tourism, with agriculture, with a whole host of other things. First of all, ease of doing business affects tourism. Let's get out of the way. It's not just the local fast food chain, whatever conglomerates that wants to make more money. It's not just them, it's everybody. It's small and micro enterprises, not just large and medium businesses. Ease of doing business across the board. That's what we need. We need it now. We've reached the point where I could say it's not just a wish and a hope, it's a need. Then we actually need for certain industries government support to help get it started. The private sector could foot the bill once it reaches a certain point. But to market a nation, There is no private sector entity in this country that could successfully make up for the lack of marketing of a nation. And Barbados markets its nation, its island, its industry. Same thing with Jamaica. There's a reason why we are one of the worst known islands in the Caribbean with regards to international markets. You go to New York or parts of North America, what part of Jamaica is Trinidad and Tobago in? They barely know who and what we are, despite all of the international excellence from Miss World to Miss Universe to the various stage performers. Now we have an actor in blockbuster films from our nation. Is our nation really that well known? No, not really. We play second fiddle to other Caribbean countries. Why? Does the rest of the world even know where the steel pan came from? No. They think of it as a Caribbean thing. It came from here. We are the land of where some of these things came from. We can't even market that. You mean to tell me that I'm supposed to take this initiative seriously with tourism, much less diversification? Listen, right now, as long as oil and gas and government could provide as much jobs as possible, I doubt we're going to see the private sector grow. And if you have any hopes and dreams that actually involves a career that isn't working for the government or isn't working in oil and gas, are you going to have those opportunities here? No. That's why we have a brain drain of people just leaving the country, because they have to find those opportunities elsewhere. Let's take a break. When we come back, I'm going to get into the local government situation. That's a whole other kettle of fish. And Mr. Awari, man, he is Santa Claus because he just keeps giving out gifts. Stay tuned. This is Talking Point on WESN. We'll be right back.
FanZone, your reliable, authentic supplier, has just gotten better. You can now visit our website www.fanzonett.com for your authentic wear and collectibles. The only place where you can use both your Visa debit and credit cards. Visit our website fanzonett.com to make your purchase today.
The best birthday gifts are at dbesttoys.com. Shop for the best brands you love at the best prices. Like VTech, Leapfrog, Fisher-Price, Play-Doh, Hot Wheels, Barbie, Cocomelon, LOL, Baby Alive, Crayola. Visit us in-store at Forces Flagship MacBean. Shop online now at dbesttoys.com. Order via call or WhatsApp at 32DBEST to order. And remember, we have the best toys at the best prices.
The issue, the continued rise in the price of flour and its impact on the cost of living in Trinidad and Tobago. How should we go about it? I want to ask you, what has been revealed to you about the state of vulnerability in the country because of this exercise and because of what we're going through? Is the government losing the war on the vaccine front?
The discussion should revolve around the common good for the greatest number of people in Trinidad and Tobago.
How do we inculcate a sense of respect and regard for people who may not be of your own political ilk or persuasion?
The communities are now being used by political opportunists. So
when the tables are turned, it's the same way. Okay, this has been 10 questions. I'm Andy Johnson, and we'll see you next time.
Every word, every line, every paragraph depicts a real moment in someone's life. A father, a sister, a mother, a brother. We at Newsday are dedicated to you, the people, and through independent, unwavering journalism, strive to always bring your stories to life. Because your stories are more than just words. Newsday, independent and credible.
Is it politics? What is it? Is it that nobody cares about sport?
The kind of support that sport used to get in the past is no longer here.
The thing is, taking a knee doesn't mean that that's the only thing you're doing now, Andy.
Right.
Taking a knee along with other stuff.
Samantha, what are you looking forward to when you return home to Trinidad and Tobago after winning the title?
Thank you very much for speaking it into existence.
Is there no pressure on Nicholas Paul?
It makes me more motivated to work hard and to go out there and rep the red, white and black.
Why are we sending a team to the Winter Olympics?
There are a number of Trinbagonians who are in the diaspora and have grown up in winter sport. It's an opportunity that the Trinidad and Tobago Olympic Committee will not close the door on.
I also believe in the players that we have. Once you can motivate the players, you can get the best out of them.
Saturday, November 5th, Shore Park, Tobago. It's Million Laughs Caribbean Comedy Commerce, the mega laugh festival to end the Tobago Carnival season, featuring Tobago's finest in folklore and musical entertainment, together with some of the Caribbean's top comedians, Larry Joseph, Daryl the Saint Mendoza, Dolores, Alan the Entertainer, Handsome Sun, Mako Media, and more. Get your ticket specials available on Island E-Tickets and various outlets nationwide, or visit the Million Laughs handles for more info. It's Comedy Commerce in Tobago, a wee kind of commerce.
Would give you a gift and you got it and you kind of didn't really want it. You know, it wasn't really much of a gift. It was more of just more bad news. It was the lack of any thought behind the gift. I'm not talking about, you know, an acquaintance or, you know, somebody who is not immediate to your life, but someone who gives you something and you're just like, what does this have to do with me? What does this have to do with our relationship or friendship? What does this have to do with our shared experiences? What is the message behind? I don't know. And, well, the flip side is with Mr. Awari, not only are the gifts that he gives us, well, they're questionable at best, but given his track record, they're completely unwanted at worst. Not just in this case, but, you know, we don't even need to open it to kind of make the assumption, you know what, I don't even really want to know. Just take it back, please. Because there was a press conference yesterday where he had an announcement to make and the government is going ahead with local government reform. Okay, all right. That's not bad. That would be some progress. That would be some development. And we've been asking about development for the entire week. Real development. I don't need, you know, a road paved or an extension of a road that is only really like 40 feet or something. You know, when they added on a couple more lanes by K-Pop, there's still one lane to get past the traffic light to go into Maraval. It doesn't really matter how much lanes you put before the traffic light. Traffic still merges to one lane. So, you know, it was brilliant, except it wasn't. But Minister of Local Government, we're moving ahead. But to do so, the government has decided, now apparently everything was more or less approved and, you know, went through whatever the processes are. So Cabinet has decided to partially proclaim. And in partially proclaiming some aspects of the legislation to start, we get this nugget from Minister Faris Awari. Let's get the first clip where I guess you could say it might be one of the most controversial parts of what he had to say yesterday, but not necessarily, in my opinion, the most controversial part. But let's get the first clip, and you might start to see what I mean.
Today, I'm very pleased to say that the Cabinet has approved the partial proclamation of the local government reform package as to specific sections. The specific sections include the provisions inside of the Act, particularly the amendments to sections 11 and 12 of the Municipal Corporations Act. And those two sections 11 and 12 deal with the life and term of local government representatives. Under the Municipal Corporations Act, Section 11, and under the Municipal Corporations Act, Section 12, the life of councillors, persons elected in Section 11, and the life of aldermen, persons in Section 12, under the law prior to the passage of the local government reform, under that law, it was a triennial period. The life of these entities, councillors and aldermen, these persons, was 3 years in length. Under the reform law, the law is specifically amended. It was passed, assented to, and today I now give you the information that we are proclaiming the move of the life of councils away from 3 years and into 4 years, whereas the life of the terms of all councillors and aldermen would normally come to an end 3 years after their election, which in factual terms would mean by the 3rd of December 2022. Instead, with the proclamation of this law, as the Cabinet has decided the law is to be proclaimed today, with the proclamation of this law, the life of the councillors and the aldermen will now go to the 3rd of December 2023.
So, the obvious thing there, that's one of the first things that he said. The obvious thing here is, so the government is going to delay local government elections because they passed new legislation. The new legislation changes the terms and conditions. That's why it more or less seems to be legal. Now, I did say at the start of the show, it's questionable if it's ethical because, well, I think to some extent everybody was anticipating local government elections to be somewhat of a litmus test with regards to the state of the nation, what people thought of the government. Because in this country, I'm not too sure. We get some polls, but then nobody wants to believe the polls, how accurate are the polls, etc., etc., etc. And to be fair, polls and elections are two different things. That's why you still have to have the election after you can have all the polls that you want. Because the elections will give us the official results. Hopefully everybody goes ahead and votes. But to just, use a technicality to delay it by a year. And the opposition has come out against it. And to be fair, I mean, it's reasonable that they do so. I just, I'm kind of fed up of the opposition crying wolf all the time. So now when we have something important that we need them to rally the cause, rally the criticism, the opposition, the voices of the people to say this kind of looks sketchy, we don't like this, we're not going to necessarily just accept this. Well, yeah, it don't really matter. Is anybody heeding the call that this is bad? We might agree, yes, it is bad. But as a nation, are we really saying anything about it? Are we kicking up a fuss? I don't know. Doesn't seem so. Maybe throughout the day, we'll see something, I'll be proved wrong on that. But it's questionably unethical because, well, the people who were elected on the basis of only being there for 3 years. They weren't chosen to be there for 4 years. They were chosen to be here for 3 years, and then the country will have a right to decide if they're going to keep them or move on with somebody else. You see, when you change the laws and then you call an election to have those elected officials be elected under the new terms of the new legislation of the local government reform, so it will be 4 years, that would be ethical. Because that's what the people would have decided in their elections at that time. So the question is, why did the government decide to do it this way? I mean, there's a silver lining. There's a silver lining. That more or less means, or at least I hope this is what it means, that this should all be sorted out by the end of the year, because by the end of the year, we're going to have elections, and the minister did announce that it's the intention of the government to have local government elections at the new end point of next year, November the 3rd. So it only delays it by a year. Is it so bad in the grand scheme of things? Do we expect that things will turn around so easily? It might. You never know. Perception is reality. But there's some other implications with regards to this legislation that have me even more concerned. Even more than this delay of a year and the potential lack of ethics. I want to get the second clip of Minister Awari where he goes into some of the things that they're going to have to roll out within this year.
This 4-year period therefore means that we start the journey of local government reform because we specifically have to roll out a number of things which I'll talk to you about this afternoon. For instance, property tax, collection, more revenue into the hands of the corporations, and then bringing to life full-time corporations. That is where your elected members serve. If they are the winners, if it's the mayor and the councillors, they now go into full-time employment, just like the secretaries at the THA do, or just like cabinet members do if they are ministers of government. It is now that we are able to build out in sequential order within the period of that year, and before the life of the council comes to an end, we're able to build out all of the relevant sections of the law that we have passed. And those include, number one, taking councillors who are executive members, converting them into what we call secretaries, just like the THA secretaries in charge of various divisions. Number two, operationalizing 13 separate divisions inside of the local government, the corporations. These, for example, include planning, engineering, they will include sporting and recreation, they will include audit and accounting. The next local government election will be run on the basis of the new law in its full form. And that new law involves, very importantly, certain financial benefits to the corporations that are critical for their survival and their efficient operation. Property tax, that is residential property tax, will be given to the corporation in which the residences are located. That means that several $100 million now flow to the corporations for them to manage the money yielded from the properties that are located there. Secondly, there's a further amount of financial contribution to come in, which is now rolling out, and that is when you look to the new law and you notice that it involves maintenance of schools, it means that we also have to transfer monies that are located under the Ministry of Education, for example, or in a state enterprise such as NIPDEC, for example. Those monies also come to the regional corporation. Certain functions at the Public Health Division from the Ministry of Health, and then certain reporting requirements back to the Ministry of Finance.
Schools, maintenance, will now be under the purview of local government. I mean, property tax revenue comes in, right? And then now there will be allocations of money that would have been allocated to the Ministry of Education for those purposes now will be allocated to the local government. Except that's a budgetary allocation from the Minister of Finance, that second one. And what the Ministry of Education gets now for that purpose, will that more or less be the same relative to the following year's budget and so on and so on and so on that will be passed on, you know? So potentially local government now will have more to do. They will have money from property tax, but that money from property tax would have been needed to carry out the functions they already have existing right now. They will have extra functions, will be relying on central government to give them a budget allocation for that. What happens when central government does not give them enough? it puts the maintenance of schools on the local government bodies. How convenient is that? At a time when there are a lot of questions with regards to the ability of the nation to upkeep, much less renovate or construct new schools. So I would just like to know, does anybody else see where this could go wrong? Because I would just like to know, is this the government trying to more or less divest itself from a responsibility it has realized it does not want to do because it's not doing it well? The results are somewhat bad, if not outright horrible in certain areas. Oh, by the way, the principals are to some extent in charge of the schools. They have direct and indirect influence on the maintenance of these schools. Well, local government officials have the authority to hire and fire staff at the schools that they are now responsible for maintaining. It's kind of rough to be budget financing an operation, but who actually runs it, it's not anywhere in your sphere of responsibility. I wonder what tutor will have to say to that, because if you're going to copy the models of other countries abroad, well, at least in America, hiring and firing is done by local school boards, not by any sort of interior ministry. So, anyway, I'm not quite yet done with this, but let's take a break. When we come back, I'm going to go into this, and then there's something I'd like to point out with regards to this crime situation that I just realized, and it's rubbing me the wrong way. Stay tuned. Talking Point on WESN. We'll be right back.
With society plagued by a host of issues, with debates surrounding our urgent concerns falling short, with questions of our future not always being answered,
the conversation continues. Join me, Kemuel Pascal, as the voice of the youth comes to life. We will confront the controversial topics of today's world to gain answers that are key for a better tomorrow. One and One with me, Kemuel Pascal. Wednesdays at 10 a.m. Only on WESN, Content Capital.
AM Prime on WESN, the only place from 6 to 7:30 a.m. where you can get the most analytical and thorough interviews and regional reports.
The Barbados Labour Party, led by the Prime Minister Mia Motley, once again able to achieve a clean sweep in yesterday's general election.
I think a lot of people have underestimated the power of Tobago nationalism.
If the government is afraid to say it, I, Martin George, I am saying it this morning on your show, Andy. There will be no carnival before Ash Wednesday.
Grab a cup of coffee and start your day right watching AM Prime with Andy Johnson weekdays from 6 a.m. Only on your Content Capital, WESN.
The best laptops and tablets are at dbesttoys.com. Get a Gateway 14.1-inch Ultra Slim notebook or an HP 14-inch laptop at the best prices in TNT. Get the Fire 7 tablet for $474. You can also shop the latest Amazon Fire Sticks. Call now at 32-DBEST to order or visit us in-store at Forces flagship Mac Beam. Shop online now at dbesttoys.com. Free delivery available throughout Trinidad and Tobago. Cash or links on delivery.
Let your voice be heard. Call Madam Fix-It on WESN, the only place that effectively helps you with your woes. Having problems getting onto government agencies, water woes, NIS and pension problems, potholes, and much, much more. Call me, Madam Fix-It, every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, right here on WESN. Let me fix it for you.
Welcome back to Talking Points. And while I was going over just a few bits of the Minister of Local Government and Rural Development, Faris Awari's press conference yesterday, where he announced that the people who the nation elected to be their local government representatives for a 3-year term will get an extra year. Nothing to see here. There's no potential of any shadiness going on. Opposition is complaining, but, you know, Kamala is the lady who cried wolf, so I'm not entirely sure to what extent. Yes, her voters will cry out into the darkness and then go home, and it will more or less end there. And will moderate, so undecided voters, you know, pick up this cause? I don't know. More on that later. You know, we like it, so we jamming still. More on that later, because, again, I have a observation I'd like to point out. But I do find it interesting that for what might be pretty serious legislation, a big change in how our country is managed, the government, ironically, has gotten the former AG who, at multiple points in time, based on his own self-contradicting statements, has proven himself to be kind of lacking when it comes to being a lawyer or a legal expert, quite dependent on advice of others, and arguably speaking, it's questionable if he really takes their advice or just demands specific advice. That is to say, him and the cabinet. And it's, I mean, at the end of the day, I don't know. I might have a bias against him in this case. You might say that it's unfair, and I won't necessarily say that you're wrong to challenge me on that point. But it's hard for me to see Mr. Awari present something like this and give him the benefit of the doubt that everything is in good faith. Because we are changing the terms and conditions of elected officials who were not elected for 4 years. So technically, in the strictest, most literal sense, isn't that a bit undemocratic? Granted, he is an elected official, cabinet are elected officials. Technically, we did not choose them to be cabinet ministers, but we did elect the party that chooses the prime minister, and by that authority, it is a process that is being done under the umbrella of our democratic system. Fine, okay, and in a year, then things will, for all intents and purposes, be moot. Fine. But I would just like to know, what is the criteria for the budget allocations with regards to the functions now being given to local government? Because I don't know, we were supposed to solve a lot of problems, including revenue, with property tax. Oh, by the way, that's another implication, folks. This means that property tax is a year away, by hook or by crook. If they want to have this thing sorted out, rubber stamped, signed, sealed, delivered, and in place in a year, that means, yes, if you are not ready for property tax within the next, technically 13 months, because we're still in November, 14, this is early November. No, I'm sorry. I lied. 12, a year. My math was mathing. You have a year to ensure that you're ready for an extra tax, right? But back to local government revenue. They're adding responsibilities What are the criteria? Because if the criteria for giving budget allocations for these responsibilities, I hope that they're not adding responsibilities any longer and expecting property tax to cover that, and all of the things that all of the local government bodies are already screaming bloody murder we don't have enough money for already, allocating more duties and functions to them. You're saying, like with regards to the maintenance of schools, the money given to the Ministry of Education will now be given to local government. What's the criteria for that? Because I hope we don't end up with local government still complaining that they don't have enough money, and then the whole point of solving some of the problems with new legislation, with reform, that just goes out the window. It makes me wonder if the government kind of forgot what the whole point of this was. Mission creep settled in. That is to say, when you add more and more objectives to an agenda, and then what you started off wanting to do and accomplish, you know, is kind of left by the wayside because you added all these extra things. And again, I wouldn't be surprised if they want to just, you know, hey, this school thing, we getting ponged for it left, right, and center every year, every term. Let's pass it on to somebody else to deal with so we don't have to deal with it. And move on. Yeah, that's nice. That's nice. You just kind of just pushing the problem off to the side. It don't matter to me no more. Great. Thank you. And again, will local government have authority on how the schools are being run? Or do they just have to foot the bill? I mean, we could look to Tobago. Tobago is one of the models, if not the main model, for this entire executive change. How does that work? Because for all intents and purposes, they do say schools could open, schools could close. Do they get to hire and fire teachers? If they do, fine, great, then to some extent, some of my fears are assuaged. But again, not just with this, but other functions. How is the budget allocation going to work? Because Tobago, you know, complains every year about their budget allocation. And if local government is going to be stuck in the same boat, well, then we're reforming for nothing. But you and me, we get to pay more property tax. That leads me to my final point, I guess, for this morning. Because I have highlighted yesterday one of the latest situations where violent crime has impacted the lives of our nation's children. And we've already seen children get shot and killed. And I do have to ask, where are the protests? Where is the public outcry? Every now and then, you know, some young ladies get murdered, and we have public outcry. And rightfully so. Rightfully so. Because those high-profile cases were indicative to our worsening crime situation, particularly our murder rate. Devolving. Ironically going upwards, but devolving. A devolving situation where the sanctity of human life and basic respect for our fellow human beings seems to be reduced or crumbling little by little. And now small children, we're not talking, okay, a 17-year-old and an 18-year-old. No. Single-digit ages. I think the youngest was 3. I can't remember. Where's the public outcry and the marches? And where's all of these, the social community leaders, not the gangsters, to rally the population to say enough is enough? Not just to tell the politicians, but to tell the police service, this is important to us. To tell the gangsters, hey, we're not going to take this line down. We haven't had it. And as pointed out Wednesday, when my colleague Karen came on the show, she's pointing out her criticisms, as she has done for over a year, for like almost 2 years now. She has not changed her behavior. She's pointing out where she sees faults in the government. Somebody brought up the potential conflict of interest. But our friendly professor, he said, well, you know what? So what if she's campaigning? That's what she should be doing to show why she should be the alternative. Where is the leader of the opposition campaigning? Outside of our own controlled safe zone of UNC, controlled, safe broadcast on the internet? Does she go out and allow herself to be challenged and questioned by members of the media so that her ideas, so that what she says, she can't just get by with passing off comments. She's challenged, and in the crucible, potentially her ideas are refined, her words, her mannerisms, her promises are refined. We get to see the truth of her, the good and the bad, and she presents herself as a full candidate after losing 2 elections, by the way, as a viable alternative. Where is that? Where is anybody doing that? Because right now, and as much as I gave the chief sec his due, it seems as though all politicians, they are running scared from the media. Government, opposition, even to some extent the THA. Who is rising up and presenting themselves? Because you know what? You could say on your platform how you will lead the country to a better place all you want. Let an independent journalist, maybe even a biased one, have a bone to pick with you. Face that challenge and then come and tell me how ready you are to deal with the complex situations that we have found ourselves in. Because I don't need someone with empty promises to tell me we will solve crime. I already have a Minister of National Insecurity for that. That's saying that schools must go on. That's nice. Okay, thank you, Captain Obvious. There are way too many Captain Obviouses in Parliament right now that are wasting our time. And this local government reform situation might end up being one hell of a bust. It's Faris Awari, the person who the country has confidence in after the public health regulation situation, the Police Service Commission situation, and the rules for appointing and acting a new commissioner of police. Yeah, a judge kind of blew that up in his face. And now with this indemnity agreement, we are supposed to have confidence that he is going to pilot new legislation that's going to change the face of local government in this country. And yet, the opposition has positioned themselves to be ineffective. And all of the good things they have to say gets drowned out by all of the nonsense. And we just accept it. I don't know if it's because of Christmas is in a couple of months, and Carnival is right around the corner to that. So this is not the time to do protests, because when Candlelight Vigil movement was protesting, it was after Carnival, before Easter, when the country kind of settles down and be more serious with life. I don't know what it is. Children are murdered. We don't protest, we don't march, we don't have any sort of... There is no response from the nation to really say this is unacceptable to the government. There is response, and the government feels the fire and the heat, and the police service feels the fire and the heat. But is it enough? Is it anywhere near what we had before COVID? I don't understand, really, how we would just let children be in the line of fire. But I have my Christmas shopping to do, and I have to go to a fete. So we like it so. We jamming still. I don't know. I said with regards to the THA, the minority leader, Kelvin Morris, is in a good position to make a name for himself, as Patrick Manning did when he was one of 3 PNM MPs in the NAR government. Only 3. But he was able to make a name for himself, become the political leader, become prime minister, etc., etc. I mean, even if you're just thinking about a self-saving political career, do it right. You have an opportunity, make the most of it. He couldn't make the most of it. Meanwhile, Kamala Persad-Bissessar has lost 2 elections. She's still the leader of the opposition. She can't position herself to take advantage of all these situations because she got caught up on so much nonsense and rubbish. Who takes her seriously now? I don't know. The last NACTA poll said the country doesn't. My co-host doesn't. What are our alternatives? And if the country doesn't show itself that they're fed up, because, yeah, we could alternate between ketchup and mustard, will we be better off? I think the undecided voters, I don't want to hear from the diehards, the undecided voters will say no, right? we won't be better off. It'll be a different flavor, but we'll be in the same situation, right? We need the people to voice their displeasure, to show, to give proof that we're serious, so that some change will happen, whether it's within the parties or whether it comes from outside. But this is a nation that just blindly votes for the pre-existing incumbent. The PDP is the exception to the norm, but there was no other party. They were the number 3 party, they were the number 2 by default. Will the PNM or the UNC break up because of something? Could we depend upon that in order for us to get a new party to come in to try to get change? Nah, that's not something to depend on. It is up to the people. Politicians are supposed to save the people, not the other way around. We need to remind them of this by voicing our displeasure. That's how Mr. Man in the UK had to give it up. And then when Liz Truss failed, was he coming back? Nope, he couldn't. Why? Because his colleagues in his own party knew that the people wouldn't accept it. But PNM colleagues will protect PNM, even when Marley McDonald has criminal matters over her head. Hey! Prime Minister Kamala Prasad says so. You know, at the end of the day, what consequences did anybody under her watch? She fired a lot of people. But really and truly, what consequences happened? And how much of that was really political infighting? You all want change? Now's the time. Don't just ask the same old people to put up or shut up. We need to put up or shut up now too. We need to actively seek this. Let's break for news on the hour on WSN. After this, we'll open up the phone lines. I want to hear from you, the viewer. Am I making sense? Who disagrees with me? Or what else do you have to say about this? Because, children in the line of fire. But we jamming still. Let's break for news.
Is your WESN News on the Hour. I am Marquise Akers. Thanks for joining us. Here are the headlines. Tobago announces February Carnival 2023 as part of a national effort. National Security Minister visits Rose Hill RC. Dylan Carter crowned King of Men's 50-meter freestyle. And internationally, UK faces record 2-year recession. Now for the details. Though Tobago just concluded its own carnival celebrations, they will be taking part in the scheduled National Carnival in February 2023. The AJ's Secretary for Tourism, Culture, Antiquities and Transportation, Tasha Brewis, made this confirmation on Thursday at the Post-Executive Council briefing.
And Tobago will be a part of those national activities. We had a meeting with Trinbago this morning, and I'm pleased to officially announce that the National Medium Band Finals will be held in February in Tobago once again.
She assured that there is no competition between Tobago and Trinidad, but this must be done in the interests of the national benefit.
Look exactly the same, just happening at 2 different times during the year. So we don't want to preempt those discussions because people may have already ideas in their mind relative to what previously happened. But the idea for February Carnival is that it's time for us to evolve out of what we've normally seen. And it's time for us to innovate in terms of how do we have events and activities that are in synergy with the national festival and not competing with it.
National Security Minister Fitzgerald Hines visited the Rose Hill RC Primary School on the Rose Hill community to get a first-hand look of how law enforcement efforts were transpiring on the ground to curtail the ongoing gang and gun-related violence in that community. On Monday, the Rose Hill RC School was caught in the middle of a terrifying exchange of gunfire that was caught on camera. Since then, the school has been closed and online classes have been taking place.
It is foolish, it is empty, it is a world of nothingness. And having said all of that, law enforcement has a responsibility in this, and we have had commitments that it will carry it out. But the community also has a role to play. And therefore, we are praying that they will do so in the benefit and interest of all.
In some sports news now, Trinidad and Tobago swimmer Dylan Carter has been crowned king of the men's 50-meter freestyle. Carter won all 3 races in Berlin, Toronto, and Indianapolis at the 2022 FINA Swimming World Cup. The TT swimmer won the hat-trick 50-meter free in 20 minutes and 72 seconds at the Indiana University Natatorium in Indianapolis. In international news, the Bank of England has warned the UK is facing its longest recession since records began, as it raised interest rates by the most in 33 years. It warned the UK would face a very challenging 2-year slump, with unemployment nearly doubling by 2025. Bank boss Andrew Bailey warned of a tough road ahead for UK households, but said it had to act forcefully now or things will be worse later on. It lifted interest rates to 3% from 2.25%, the biggest jump since 1989. Well, that's news to the hour on WESN. I am Marquise Akers. Thanks for watching.
Remember, Jerome?
What?
It's just the other day I had a bypass surgery.
That I mean you had to bypass me.
You don't know the position I in?
Position? When that was? You know how long me see you in a position?
Saturday, November 5th, Shore Park, Tobago. It's Million Laughs Caribbean Comedy Commerce. The Mega Laugh Festival to end the Tobago Carnival season, featuring Tobago's finest in folklore and musical entertainment, together with some of the Caribbean's top comedians, Larry Joseph, Daryl the Saint Mendoza, Dolores, Alan the Entertainer, Handsome Son, Mako Media, and more. Get your ticket specials available on Island E-Tickets and various outlets nationwide, or visit the Million Laughs handles for more info. It's Comedy Commerce in Tobago, a wee kind of commerce.
Join me, Sule A. Joseph, as I delve into the day-to-day psychological issues plaguing our society. We will discuss behaviors that encompass the biological influences, social pressures, and environmental factors that affect how you think, act, and feel. Sight, Thursdays at 11:30 a.m., only on WESN. Content Capital.
Welcome back to the program, ladies and gentlemen. Of course, now is the time we open up the phone lines. I'm sure there might be some people who want to call in and say, Sean, you're talking rubbishness. You're crazy. And then there'll be others who will agree with me. I will say this, right? I'm not looking to be government bashing for the sake of some anti-PNM agenda. I am seeing the results. I have problems with the results now. The situations now. I want to talk about where do we go from here, because we're not trending upwards. So then it's reasonable to say a lot of things are looking bad, from education to crime to agriculture to tourism. Yes, even with this hotel. I think it's reasonable to say we're trending downwards. But call in, let me know what you think. And also joining me for the rest of the show, we have with us Mr. Darren Lee Singh. He is no stranger to the program. Good morning, Darren.
Morning, Trinidad and Tobago.
Morning, Sean. So, I mean, am I crazy? Because I'm looking at this local government situation. And first of all, Minister Awari has more or less made himself out to be not the best Attorney General. And now he's putting forward new legislation that's going to change local government reform. Something that on the surface, without knowing any details, everybody I think will say they want. And there's going to be property tax in a year because they want this all sorted out within a year. We're going to get property tax. Who not ready for it? Well, that's unfortunate. But they're also going to add responsibilities to local governments, which means that they're going to, what he said, have to allocate more money to local government. Whereas before, wasn't the whole point of it for property tax so that they collect their own revenue and handle their own matters? But now they'll still be having to reach out to government to get money, and we could wind up in the same situation where they still not getting enough money and complaining and they're stuck, and now they have to try to figure out how they're going to do all of these extra things with whatever property tax they get. If they're in a rural area, it wouldn't be much. Am I wrong to have worries about these things?
Sean, you're not wrong to have worries. But remember, I always come to the conversation talking about solutions.
Right.
And for me, at this time and at this place, we've been running deficit budgets for how many years, I can't even count. Perhaps older than my children. And the reality is that we the citizens are always against tax. But if we go to the US, if we go to the UK, we're more than willing to pay tax. So what is good out there cannot be good down here. That reality has to resound with us.
No.
Go ahead.
No, I understand that, and it's true. In Canada especially, or certain parts of the US, the taxes are horrendous. I think New York has 3 levels of income tax: city, state, and federal. However, the economics are not exactly the same. You could get a decent wage for jobs that either doesn't exist in TNT, and to be fair, we're small, so we can't expect all jobs, right? But also jobs that do exist in TNT, your standard of living, even after all the tax, except for maybe somewhere like New York, is pretty good compared to here.
So let's keep in tandem with the solutions conversation. It's about knowledge creation. And many years ago when I attended Arthur Look Jack, I attempted to do my doctoral DBA there. The whole notion of that pool, Dr. Faisal Ali, he was then the advisor put to us, the IDB guy. And so you see when knowledge creation is transferring, he moved to UTT, and now he's a big boy in the IDB. And you welcome that kind of understanding and transference. But what I'm saying to you is, in that DBA pool that he assembled at that time, he understood well that you couldn't just put the brightest. You had to bring in accounting minds. You had to bring in legal minds. You had to put together a pool in different resources, in different sectors, and help that pool blossom forward.
But that sounds like diversification. Not necessarily the exact same thing, but similar conceptually. And to get that, to get different people in different areas to try to grow our pool knowledge creation, not just in one industry. We've heard lip service to diversification. We haven't actually achieved it. Stick a pin in that.
I want to say one thing.
Quick.
I think the time has come for the 25 to 40-year-olds, or maybe 45-year-olds. It's time for them to speak up. It's time for them to put forward their ideas. But it's not just for them to put forward their ideas and suggestions. It's time for the elders, those who hold the ranks of power, to listen and perhaps incorporate, and perhaps at that point we will find solutions.
There's a lot to unpack there, but we have a caller from Diego Martin. Good morning, caller.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Morning.
Yes, Mr. Yiseng, you're quite correct what you're saying. I agree with that 100%. The fact is that as pertaining to the postponement of this local elections, I think it's a plus for the government because they can't really call elections next year because of the fact that so many things have happened against them and it doesn't look good. And they need some time to recuperate and readjust and bring back themselves in good light of the public. And the fact is, this is just my opinion. I have of the opinion that I suspect that the financiers are not given that sort of support again. Maybe a few of them, but a lot of them are not going to give them a lot of money to finance for campaigning and so on. And they need to use those monies that they're talking about here. You know, they promise a lot of things and never come up with it, and that is going to be a problem. They probably will use some of that money to store it away for time coming to the election time. So that's just my opinion. It's not a fact.
Okay, okay.
Thank you for taking my call.
Thank you, caller.
Gentlemen, I hope Keaton is all well and good.
Yes, yes.
I didn't touch the local government one.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is how I look at it. Objectively speaking, Sean, if you so empower the local government, it is lesser powers for the central and main government.
That's what we were looking at.
But more than that, because I have a first-hand look at how corporations look, and when I mean first-hand, I've seen it in different lengths and breadth, it is time for them to be so empowered. It can't be that we are a reactive society. Port of Spain's floods in 5 minutes, and there's no mechanisms to help bridge that problem before it happens. The things wrecking, all these different things that take us from third world status to first world status matter. And it has to be a systematic thing. So for me, I look at the pushback. I know it's 7 years in coming. I know it was a campaign promise. But I am hopeful that we could see it before a general election.
My actual real concern is not so much the year, because I made a case why it is somewhat undemocratic, because they weren't elected for a 4-year term, but our elected officials are the ones making that change, so it's still under the umbrella of democracy. That said, my real concern was the fact that they are giving more responsibilities and functions to local governments. And because one of the things is school maintenance. And they're saying, well, the money that goes to the Ministry of Education will go to them for that. My fear is that, first of all, what's the criteria moving forward for that allocation? But then also, is it that they're just looking to kind of get rid of certain responsibilities because they get hit for it in public discourse and they want to run away from it? Because right now, education maintenance it's a ticking time bomb. It's literally, it might be one of the worst situations of financial mismanagement that we have, or if not mismanagement, something we just can't afford, but we still trying to somehow pull it together.
But Sean, you looking at education maintenance, I started the conversation with knowledge creation. And I look at every corner we turn now in Port of Spain, there's either a Spanish speaker, a Chinese speaker, or some other element where our kids, children, because a kid is a young goat, I'm corrected daily by my children, so I must put it properly. But when I compare, when I went to university, Sean, we were more advanced and more mature than those young Americans, because I went to school in America. Right. And it was easy for me to cruise through university at that time. And we always said we are way more advanced in our curriculum. But then I asked myself, the world is changing. We see the progress of China in the East as against the Western philosophies. And we say to ourselves, Sean, what is the nexus to us understanding and helping our children to be properly advanced when they reach the tertiary education levels? And I'm not dealing with the local element. I'm wondering, for example, why is Spanish not a second language of our country?
Well, we'll stick up on that. We have a caller from San Fernando. Good morning, caller.
Good morning, Sean.
Morning.
I'm Mr. Lee.
Morning to you, sir.
You know, there is, even though there is some short-term benefit that the PNM going to enjoy from enacting some part of the local government legislation, because in my opinion, as a politician, it's not a good time to go for a local government election.
I mean, yeah.
In the state of the country right now for them. However, local government reform is long in coming, and it needs We need it. I don't disagree with a lot of the stuff in the local government reform legislation. Huh?
Right.
I think what would have to happen if this has to be a success, if it has to be successful for the population has to start to manage when it is that you have council meetings. People have to go to those meetings whether it's on a Tuesday or whether it is at the city corporations or whatever it is, and make their voices heard. In addition to which, I think what we need to have, because of this influx of money coming into the corporation, I think we need a little more strengthening of the what you call it, the Solicitor General's office, to actually police these corporations with a fine-tooth comb to make sure, because we know what happens with more money in Trinidad and Tobago. With more money means more corruption. So those are the things that we need to do. But the population needs to get involved and go to those council meetings whenever the corporation has them, and make their voices heard for issues in their community.
Yes.
Thank you, gentlemen. Have a good weekend, Sean.
We have another caller from Chaguanas. Morning, Professor.
You have to study the history of local government reform. This is something that Patrick Manning started over 15 years ago. And at that time, the local government tax used to go to the regional authorities, the cities and boroughs. But outside of that, central government used to collect it as land and building taxes. And the regional authorities went there and asked that they collect that. And Patrick Manning put up a technical committee who examined the position. They got proper property tax advice, and they supported it, and you could get a copy of this in the government print sheet. Since then, everything on property tax has been hidden, because that, in fact, that's what caused the problem. Because property tax wasn't really a tax, it was a rate. It was 3 rates. And you get a service rate. The one we're talking about here was the one for infrastructure, maintenance, and garbage collection with local government, but also water rates and sewer rates were property tax. And this is the major cause that WASA is now bankrupt by government interfering. Karen did the proper thing at the time and took all the information available, went to Maritime to update the report. And as she quite rightly pointed out that, she said she was going to publish it on the web in 2009. That's 13 years ago. Up to now, that has not been published. And that is the reason for the postponement. Government still isn't ready with property tax. And this Minister of Finance have promised on 8 occasions that he was ready to go. Because it's easy to determine that they have not published their role. Because anybody who knows anything about property tax, anytime you do a massive exercise like that, you have to give people the opportunity to examine their information. In fact, according to our law, in February every year, the role is supposed to be open for people to examine it. That role has not been examined for 20 years. Instead, government went and put up a new law to make it from being a rate, to make it a tax. Right? Because now central government is collecting it. And what makes it worse, the worst collector of property tax was the central government with land and building taxes. And there's an obvious reason for that. The borough and city was getting the land tax to do their work, so they take special pains to see that they collect maximum. And not only that, the people who want to get the service could go straight to them and complain. Any questions, gentlemen, or are your partner not here this morning?
No, Professor. Your last point I loved, especially. Go straight to them, the people who they given the property tax money at the time to
no, but that is in the report
and complain.
that put up. That is in the report there that was given.
All right, Professor, thank you. So, I mean, there's a lot there. I will say this with the property tax, and I guess one of the reasons why I am bracing on it coming within a year is the fact that I don't know if the citizens in this economic climate could adjust for that. I think in the long run, I agree with you. You know, if this is going to get us properly funded services, I'm all for it. But then now that begs the question, government service, is it reliable enough to warrant this? You know, do we get the service to merit this? And part of it goes into the point you were making before we got the callers, the education system. Because I do say, yes, the maintenance of facilities, that is the obvious problem. And it is huge, and it is staring us in the face. But the curriculum issues that we have, the lacking in the curriculum, or the changes for the sake of changes that just pile onto the workload of teachers, and it impacts the quality of the education because they spend more time trying to adjust to the changes than to actually being proficient in teaching what's necessary. And are we keeping up? We now have a caller. I don't know if you want to just give us a quick comment.
I wanted to continue on the education thrust, and I'll say one quick thing. My niece, who is in Atlanta, at 10 years old, is learning nuclear physics and coding. What does the comparable child in Trinidad and Tobago learn? Are we relevant and keeping our children relevant? And so if you want to talk about the other macro issues, we have to deal with the micro issues. Knowledge creation. I always come to your shows to talk solutions. And maybe I'll open a show. I did tell you solutions.
We have a caller from another caller from Digger Martin, I believe.
Yes, hi, good morning.
Morning.
Morning, gentlemen.
Morning to you.
I signed up to pay property tax a couple of years ago. Delivered my documents and so, right? But with the present economic climate, after COVID, my small business has declined to almost 20%. Very, very slow, right? I do not know if I will, I know I pay my taxes, my small business, I paid my taxes up to 2020. I have to file for last year and this year, right? I pay my taxes religiously. But I do not know if I can accommodate any more taxes with what is happening in the economy, especially with the rise in cost of living. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, caller.
Now that's a separate show.
I mean, yeah.
And that touches the length and breadth of all of us.
Yes.
Post-pandemic, how the banks and all of them are treating, even Sean, I understand the SME grant that was given last year. You have to be in the black. But you coming out of COVID, what small businesses will be in the black? That's unrealistic, not in keeping with the times. A better solution would be metrics to be meted out. So every 2 months, you show your accountability of the growth, the trajectory, positive trajectory.
The question is, do we have issues because we're jumping from topic to topic, unfortunately, so much, right? So everything leads into something else. Because now with metrics, we go back to the question of, do we get performance from the government bureaucracy? Because the more complex these things are, I mean, we saw what happened with Gates. We made it a free-for-all. They took advantage of it. They tried to put controls, not necessarily the best controls for the grants, and then people can access the grants. And they had to, like, in different stages, release money, and there's some grants where it took over a year to get the bulk of the money out.
I'm going back to knowledge creation. Some of us aren't meant to be pilots or doctors or lawyers, but we could be plumbers. We could be electricians.
Now you're touching on our next topic here that is near to my heart, Darren, because the trades apparently, they're dying even in North America, so it's not unique to us. But we need people.
Our plumber, Sean.
How old is he?
He's, I would say, 50 years old.
Exactly.
He spent the last 6 months in Canada. I couldn't get my plumber here. Yes. So that is the reality.
Folks, Mr. Lee Singh and I could talk at length about a lot of things, and we will meander because, as I said, one thing leads into the next, but we're almost out of time. I'd just like to thank you for joining us for this brief impromptu visit.
I can't fill Keaton's shoes, but I can surely try to converse and have a talking point with you.
Well, you know what? I might take you up on that sometime in the distant future, but until then, I will just, once again, I like to reiterate what one of our callers said. He said for local government, we shouldn't just expect the government to do everything for us. We need to be more involved too. And he wasn't calling for much. He was just saying, be involved in party process that we're already supposed to be involved in. And I would say throughout all of our democratic processes, we need that. But I will make a further call now again. Children on the line of fire. Where is the public rising up in whatever form? It doesn't have to be marches. It doesn't have to be vigils. It doesn't have to be videos. But in some form or fashion, you know, make it known, hey, this is not acceptable. We need a change. And for extra points, like Mr. Lee saying, offer up some solutions, because it's not as though the Minister of National Security is giving us anything new to think about.
Sean, I remember somebody is a proponent of compulsory national service. Many laughed at it. But maybe the time has come for now. Take them off the corners and make them be productive elements of our society.
One thing leads into the next.
Whether it's trade.
Who's going to manage them?
No, but it could be that they're going down this road because they didn't see that a plumber could be independent, an electrician could be independent. They're not seeing the same independence road, and we have to help them and show them a way.
And you see, folks, just to close, whether it works out to be a great idea or it works out to be impractical, discussing it will either determine if it's a good idea or help us work and find a more practical solution if it isn't. We need to have the discussions, and for that we need the people to start being involved. Okay. This is it. Last talking point for the week. I'd like to thank all of our callers throughout the entire week. Keaton, wherever you are, I hope you are well. All the contributors for this week, Mr. Lee Singh. My name is Sean Michael Small. This has been Talking Point. Thanks for watching me. Ran for an hour, but we will see you next week. Stay safe for the weekend. Today's a good day to still try to have a good day, and it's in the motto, folks. Together we aspire. Together we achieve. Together. Have a good weekend. Bye-bye.
WESN.
Secret Side Girls IC School presents Wonderland, a bazaar with a difference.
Saturday, November 5th, St. John's Ambulance Headquarters, Ryson Road, Port of Spain, 12 noon to 6 p.m. Many exciting stalls and much more. Walk along Adult Street and win many prizes from adult punchboard, hoopla, tin pan alley, and much more. Don't miss them.